Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. This podcast is all about normalizing conversations around sexuality, intimacy, masturbation, pleasure, arousal. It's been far too long that we as men have had no places to have these conversations. It's time to step back into our power and live a more revitalized life. Today, I've got a special guest. We're going to dive into a juicy topic we've never talked about before. I've got Ashley Jones from Kauai, a love, intimacy, and embodiment coach. She runs programs for women, for sexuality, sexual mastery for men, works with couples. So, we're going to have plenty to talk about, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ian. I love what you do, and I think this conversation is going to be really important for everyone listening.
Beautiful. I love giving listeners an inside look to lives like my own, and I'm sure like yours. I'm sure you live a life that listeners have no idea the things that you experience. And I mean, just the fact you have this beautiful pole in the background, I'm like, I imagine that's part of the work that you do. So I would love if you'd kind of peel back the curtains and just share some of the ways you work with men, with women, with couples, just to give people an inside look of other things that are happening in people's lives when it comes to pleasure, intimacy, trainings, experiences, etc.
Yes, absolutely. So maybe I could start with just giving you a little bit of background about me and my journey and like what brought me here.
Please.
So in my journey of life, I did experience childhood sexual trauma. And then I got married and had children and was deep in that world and that relationship. And I found the passion fell away very quickly after I started having children. And we got stuck in this kind of habitual rut around sex and our sexuality and our intimacy. It was kind of disconnected. It wasn't very pleasurable for me at all. And I hear this from a lot of couples. I think this mirrors a lot of experiences that couples have. Our bodies, our sex, everything changes when we have children. Actually, everything changes in our lives as we grow, whether we have children or not. And so I came to this precipice in my life where I was deeply unsatisfied in this way and many layers of my relationship. I was still carrying the trauma, even though I had done a ton of talk therapy and thought, I'm good. But it was still kind of showing up because I wasn't really able to access the pleasure that I kept hearing women express that they were having. So I was like, what's wrong with me? Am I broken? What's going on? And there was a turning point in my life where I did some healing work around that trauma in my body, and it changed everything. And that's when that was embodiment work, somatic work. And that's where I finally came to my partner after doing that healing work and I said, this has to shift. Something has to change because I'm in pain. I'm not experiencing what I want to experience. And so I went on a journey. We went on a journey, really. 17 years of marriage, we like dove in. It was really particularly like in all sorts of alternative ways. And, somatics was a really, really big part of that. Shifted the trauma. I had to like go into my pain and clear it or shift it in order to access my pleasure. And I had to learn so much of what I was, and so many of us were denied in just the education of our bodies, our emotions, how it's all connected, and how we relate, our partners relate with us, and how we relate with them. And so I went on this journey and it's brought me to where I am now. It's brought me to study everything that I've studied and to share it because everything transformed so deeply within myself and my relationship. And I also had children that were starting to come into their sexuality, and I wanted them to have a different experience. And for them to have a different experience, I had to have a different experience. I had to have a different relationship with myself, with my body, with my intimacy. And so did their father. And so I wanted to be able to give them information and just the way of like being okay within themselves that I think you just can't do if you don't have that awareness in yourself. So that was a little bit of my journey.
Thank you so much for sharing. And you and your husband are still together?
We are not together, but we went on this amazing journey. We shifted everything. There's some substance abuse on his end that eventually had me leave,
Well,
but we are very good friends. We are very connected, and he thanks me all the time
oh,
for diving into that and allowing that shift in our life and in his life, and as we live our lives.
it
So
was
we're
it was
very connected in our family.
it was inspiring for me to hear that you guys were together for so long and then you went on that journey together because I don't really hear that often. And it really brought up for me how this is what it takes in a relationship, especially when it comes to sexuality and pleasure, all the other arenas as well. But sexuality and pleasure that I have to be on my own path as an individual within a relationship to be continually looking at my healthy relationship to pleasure. And my partner has to do the same in order for us to have this coming together that creates this continual uh, fulfillment and nourishment in our relationship as we go on and on. So I felt into that importance and love that you were doing it together because I know all I can do is focus on myself and my partner has to be on that journey and see if we can come together and make that beautiful exchange.
Yeah, what I tell people all the time when I work with couples or individuals is like you have to do the work on yourself. And if you want to really shift what's happening, like when we do work on ourselves, that can be enough to shift what's happening in the couple. But when you both can be like, okay, I want to address this, it's really hard. It's so connected to the ego. For me, every time I would try to address something with my husband, he would retract. And it was almost like he didn't feel like he was good enough or something. And so he would just disconnect, which was hard because there was so little connection already. And then I just started to like, oh, I can't bring anything to him. I'm just going to get into we just got into a very repetitive pattern that I hear from people all the time, very unpleasurable. And when I finally came to him and I said, this is not working for me. Something has to shift. He was like, I know. Like he knew. And it wasn't like a blame. It wasn't like you're doing something wrong or, I'm doing it was just like this, something's not working here and it has to shift or something's gonna break. And he luckily came on board. And we had addressed every other, thing, issues in our relationship except for sex. That was like the taboo piece, which I hear from people a lot. But because he had to learn, I had to learn. We both had sexual trauma as children. So it took us both like kind of recovering those aspects of ourselves and learning about each other and ourselves to be able to create what we created. And we learned so much and we got into like really deep connection. And yeah, again, he's so grateful that I took him on this wild ride. But yeah, and the pole, I do teach sensual embodied movement to women. I teach S Factor and something called erotic flow. And I feel like this is a really important component for women to be able to be in sober, safe, really celebratory environments where they can access their authentic sensuality and not be performative. And just the pole is just one component of exploration of that. It's a lot of fun.
I think the pull and many other things that I've seen women embarking upon when it comes to pleasure and waking themselves back up to embodiment and feeling is is this thread that I see and I hope to bring more into working with men, which is these practices in connection to sexuality or pleasure or intimacy or arousal or turn on, where we're actually bringing ourselves back to life. We're actually bringing ourselves back to life, and it's why I think working with sexuality is one of the most potent things is I just felt it right there, right before I said it, is I feel electricity move through my body all the time in ways that I never used to feel. Drinking all the time, doing pain pills, numbing myself, and like the way that I work with pleasure has brought me back to life so much.
Completely.
And and in my energy, in my awareness of self, in the pleasure that I feel move throughout my body, not just in my genitals or erogenous zones.
Mhm.
And just I feel more alive. I'm curious, I love hearing about the pole, and I'm curious what other What other practices do you see really help women come back into their pleasure? Because women have so many obstacles. I think women have different obstacles than men and even more obstacles than men in certain ways. If we look at the male side, you're like, for us as men, it's like when we're young, particularly, it's like, oh man, he's getting all the girls. That's a good thing. But if we flip the script with women, it's like, oh, she's a hoe, she's a whatever. So there is an extra thing there that I think women have to face in the collective consciousness. That's like pleasure is bad, lock that up, be a virgin, all these things. So I'm curious to take a little peek into the what you see in the work you do with women when it comes to pleasure.
Oof, it's such a big one. I would say one of the big what you just talked about is one of the biggest hurdles. The kind of cultural overlays and what I call religious trauma. It's not that religion's bad, what have you, but a lot of the overlays of what women are taught in that context is that their bodies are dangerous and bad, to deny any pleasure, to like that's for men, it's only for procreation. And so when they have these overlays, it's very difficult to kind of come into a place of permission for themselves. And this has such a detrimental effect on relationships. I work a lot with couples who were married virgins, in religious contexts, and they are struggling to understand. Most of the time, the women feel very disconnected. They don't want sex. They've never really experienced pleasure with sex. And then they have those overlays, which somehow it's bad, wrong, masturbation, what have you. And so they don't ever get to know themselves. And then the men, often want it, and they want it to be sacred, and they want it to feel good, and they want desire and passion. And so it's for women, I think it's absolutely, whether it's pole or sensual and body movement, it's one, being able to slow down enough to feel what's there, enough to feel the sensations in our body, enough to connect with our breath. And again, giving ourselves an environment of permission that is non-performative, that is sober and connected, where we can express ourselves sensually and erotically, not for anybody else but ourselves. And so when you give women that permission and that space, what I see is just, this unfurling of themselves, this undoing of those layers, and then this coming into their true essence. And I believe that our erotic nature is super sacred and very important and connected to our spirituality, connected to our power, connected to, and so for man too. And so when women, what you're just talking about, that energy, when they start to feel that, when they can, it's also a way to manage our nervous system. So when they can slow down and breathe and express and move that, and awaken themselves, then they can start to access their pleasure, you know, in life and in sex. They're going to start to feel more joy just in walking around in life and connection. They're going to be more open to connection. And they're also going to be able to discern, because I think a lot of these layers for women come from fear. They come from, like, as a mother, like we don't want our daughters to, and that's scary out there in the world. So I know, so a lot of like religion, the men, and then on top of that, even our own mothers, projecting any of that stuff on us around. It's mostly fear. We want our daughters to be safe. We don't want them to be taken advantage of. We want them to be able to say no, but we don't tell them how to say no. We want them to be able to read their, what's going on in their bodies, but we don't ever teach them how to do that. And so sensual and body movement, the other aspects of what I do through breath work, through even guiding women through understanding, I give them the sex education that they never got and that most men don't get,
Hmm.
so that they understand their sexual anatomy and they can connect it to their breath, their movement, and allow that to come alive.
Mm, mm. Yeah, wild, I'm realizing more and more how wild a part of the teaching about sexuality had nothing to do with the nervous system.
Has everything, the cervix is the root of the vagus nerve.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
And so I think that there's something that happens when a woman can really be in surrender and allow herself to feel pleasure, and her partner, if they're in a heterosexual dynamic, her man is able to hold that strength and power, able to activate her, and she's already activated. Like, so when we're expressing ourselves and in nature and we're moving and we're on our own for ourselves, we're already in activation. We are in
Yeah.
turn on in our lives, not necessarily sexually, but we're in our life force activation. When we're disconnected from that, and it's hard because we are in overdrive. Our culture's set up where, we're these single families,
Yeah.
all the things like mothers are overburdened. They're exhausted. And fathers too. They're exhausted. They're tired. They're overwhelmed. They're angry. They're frustrated. Like it's too much. And so you can't access pleasure through that window of like overwhelm, and then they usually go, I don't have the energy for sex. It's not important. It's not necessary. But what I tend to show couples and women and men is that a woman's pleasure, and a couple's pleasure coming together feeds them. It feeds their connection. It feeds their vitality so that they have more to give, so that they can show up in their lives more fully. And that's where I think we get confused,
I think that I felt into something really strong there that I felt into a lot of different ways, and I really think that there's a huge thing here. One of the biggest things that is being navigated between man and woman, male and female, is men are not taught how to face their insecurities. And they're not taught inner child work, they're not taught parts work. And this, I think, is one of the main things that shows up in the bedroom.
Totally.
Is this is the place where the little boy shows up. Different versions of the inner child show up because we came out of the vagina. We were breastfed, most of
Hopefully.
us, hopefully. And even if we weren't, it was still in us from so many generations. And so I feel the depth of men's insecurities when it comes to sex. And I don't think they realize the damage that that does to themselves, let alone their partner, but actually does to themselves. Because I feel what comes up is a constriction around the woman's pleasure and gets her in her head, not in her body, all these things that men talk about of even influencers that are like male influencers are talking about like female body count and all this stuff from a place of fear. It's all fear based and I don't think they realize the lack of nourishment they get from it being set up that way. That when they're coming with insecurities, when they're coming up, when they're using monogamy as a safety tool, like I think so many men are using monogamy and marriage as a cage to protect them from their insecurities than actually from love. And they have
Totally.
no idea how much they're starving themselves from that insecurity, and they'll never have the sex that nourishes them. You can never lock down a woman, to enough chains and think that you're going to get some fulfilling, juicy ass nourishment from it. And I think it puts us on both sides of the aisle in trouble and in a problem that, like you said, because you said we can have sex in a relationship that feeds us, that nourishes us, that gives us energy and amplification for everything else that we're doing, whether it's work, whether it's with the kids, whether it's, goals, whether it's going to the gym. Like, I love having an intimate experience and then going and working out or working on my business and just being, and my partner's doing that as well. And I just feel this insecurity piece with men is not talked about enough in the way that it's making their sex terrible.
Yeah, it's really sad. And I will tell you that, like, in my own life, in my own experience, when we shifted that in my marriage, I was so much happier, like so much happier in every element. Before that, I was carrying deep frustration, overwhelm, even anger, sadness, like kind of on the daily. Not that I showed it, but I was experiencing it and feeling it. And when that started to shift in our lives, I felt so much happier and joyful and, available for a lot more play with my children, for a lot more connection with other people. Our business started to really flourish. Like there was so much connected to that isn't possible. And I think it is really sad when people kind of get locked down in monogamous relationships and they hold kind of chains on each other to not develop this part of themselves. I mean, monogamy is great if
Yeah.
you're growing, if you're continuing to grow. And this part of our sex, hands down, is an area that we have to evolve in. Like this saying, oh, we're married, this is how you do it, penis and vagina, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's multi-layered. Our lives completely shift and change as we go through, if we have children, if we go through perimenopause, menopause, even for men, like learning how to grow our emotional intelligence, our erotic intelligence, is imperative to having a juicy, fulfilling sex life and partnership, period.
Mm,
And until we start to put some focus on that and learn, and I'm so glad that more and more people are talking about it, and men like you, I love what you do. Thank you.
mhm.
It's important because I think there has been so much shame, so many layers for both men and women, and we have to do it together. It's not, we can't just put it on a woman's hormones
Yeah.
or just
Yeah.
put it on,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I have too many couples come to me all the time in monogamous relationships where they have been sexless for far too long, and one person is not willing to work on it. And and it's like, what do you do with that? It's really sad.
I want
And
to piggyback you and make that clear too is I have predominantly been in monogamous relationships and believe in monogamy for sure in a lot of beautiful different ways. And I think a lot of people are doing it from their insecurities. So I just want to
absolutely.
repeat that to the listeners that we're not saying it is a bad thing, but most people are using it as a crutch to protect and say, "Oh, let's be monogamous so I never have to face any of the things of you seeing other people or dating other people." It's like that it never works. That protection is never there. There's not a large enough ring to protect anyone from that fear that comes from not facing it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just wanted to piggyback that because
Yeah, and I think that part of that really comes from, oh, we're in this thing. This is what we do now. We do like we give to each other in this way, but we don't really know how to give to each other well. Even if you've had a bunch of partners in the past, like it doesn't matter what your body count is. I will tell you, some of the people with the biggest body count are still clueless when it comes to, how to bring a woman pleasure or vice versa. It doesn't matter. It's, and same thing, people married virgins are like, what do we do? We're stuck here. So it is important to, and I think masturbation, I don't call it masturbation, I call it self-pleasure, is absolutely important
yeah.
because that's how we learn about ourselves. We need to like change the narrative around that so that it's not this like sinful thing. It's like, oh, how do I connect with my own body? What does my body enjoy? How can I feel and discover that? It is absolutely important. I remember when my son was little and he would nurse and he would nurse and he would just like his eyes would be rolling back and we're in Hawaii, so it's naked. The kids are naked a lot, and he'd be playing with his penis and nursing, and I'd just be laughing like this little boy is in heaven. And and from the time they're little, from the time they come out, they're getting little hard-ons. Like our bodies are in energetic, they're sexual, not that they're even thinking or even know what that
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
body has these responses. And when we shame kids and
Yeah.
we shame them out of that, they don't get to know themselves. And then they go at it as quick and hard as they can in secret, and they develop that kind of relationship with themselves, add porn, that is so far from what we can experience. And so that's where I like to really teach in my programs to understand female sexuality and female pleasure and male pleasure as well, and to get over those hurdles and kind of rewrite our sexual stories, rewrite our how we interact. Because I think that if we were to do this as a culture, we would heal so much in our relationships, in how we raise our children, and how we interact, in the fear that we all carry around, being seen or sexual or sensual.
I a lot of my beginning percolations around the work that I wanted to do with men was actually from seeing the different paths that women were on in regards to their self-pleasure and realizing I would be in groups where there was a path for women in their self-pleasure, but there was nothing for men. It was like, yeah, man, do breath work. And I'm like, what? What is going on here? Like, how is there nothing for men to practice here? And on my own journey, when I work with people and in my training that I do, I predominantly focus on a man's relationship to masturbation and moving more towards what we can call self-pleasure. And I think it's actually the best place for a man to start is the way that he's touching himself because it's like the advanced version when it comes to what we're doing with a partner, but all of those habits are created in the way that we as men are touching ourselves. And I'm curious, because I'm a man, I work with men predominantly, and I'm curious what you see a lot of when it comes to this journey with women and reclaiming their self-pleasure, moving from maybe just, using a vibrator real quick and just on their clit, maybe never having a cervix orgasm or a G-spot orgasm or even knowing what they are, and then them kind of reclaiming their self-pleasure because I'm not in that world, and I think it would be valuable for the listeners to hear too.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's a vulnerable place. A lot of trauma can be healed in being able to access our pleasure as well. So what I see is in layers. Like I guide women through connecting with their bodies non-sexually first,
Yeah.
just like listening and attuning to, because our bodies carry such massive intelligence and they also carry all of what we've experienced. So, the journey there, I go one layer at a time. And, once we can start listening, because as a feminine, we are very intuitive. And part of that intuition is the body's intelligence. We have to be able to listen to our bodies no, our bodies yes, our bodies maybe to sex and to all things in life, and so I start there, and it's really cool to see women be like, oh, I could feel this like contraction here, I could feel this opening here, oh, I can feel, my body's needing this or whatever, like that deeper listening. And then as they start to attune that way, then they start to feel into these different deeper layers around their sensuality and sexuality. And I guide them through like self-pleasure and slowing down and being able to connect with their breath and being able to give their body touch that feels really good, that's not necessarily straight to the genitals, and to slow down, and then how to like kind of build that and then let it rest and build it, like the edging pieces too of it on whatever body part that they're exploring, to know how incredibly magnificent our bodies are, how much pleasure is available. And we often just skip over it because we're going straight for the most intense, friction-based sex, which, as most of you probably know, most women don't experience orgasm just by penetration alone. So to inform women, to give them and men, the anatomy piece of like, hey, the G spot is here. This is what it feels like. This is how you access it. The A spot's here, the cervix. This is where that is. This is how you access, how the nerves are all connected, how the clitoris actually, what it looks like, how it's all connected to the nerves is imperative. We have to have the knowledge paired with the emotional aspect and energetic aspect of how we connect and relate to ourselves and each other. It can't just be one or the other.
So listeners, go look it up. learn the actual shape of the clitoris, the G spot, the A spot, the cervix. Just do it right now. Pause what you're listening to, go look it up, get a little
Yeah,
bit of information, and you'll be another scoop of understanding here. And it's a what I love about it is it's a continuous journey of learning. And I think the main thing here, talking to a predominantly male audience is, and we talked about this earlier, is how do we separate out performance anxiety and it being all about performance? Oh, I gotta know where the A spot is, and I gotta know where the cervix is, and then I gotta do this like this and this like this, and if I do it just right, then she's gonna be multi-orgasmic, and then I'm gonna be the good little boy that mommy always loved. Like, I think so much of the sexual teaching bypasses what's really going on for men when they want to learn all these skills. It's like, oh yeah, become multi-orgasmic. And all of it is on this foundation that is this wounded little boy that doesn't feel good enough, that doesn't feel seen, that wants mommy's love. And nobody talks about that because it's not, you know, so exciting and sellable. But that's the truth that I see is
yeah.
that that's where the little boy comes out for mommy's love and let me learn about the A spot and the G spot and all this. It's like, guys, don't go down that path. Do the emotional parts work, inner child work, and then learn the performance stuff, please.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You have to be able to pair it. And I will tell you, like, as my husband and I really dove into this, it was incredibly awkward. It was incredibly awkward. He's like, is it here? Is it there? Right there? Like harder? Like, and we had to get curious and really like giggle and get like, all right, and let it be awkward. And I think that men put so much pressure on themselves to just get it right. And even women can be cruel sometimes and be like, oh, and I remember feeling really frustrated with my husband a lot of like he just wasn't touching me in the way that felt good to my body. And I would get frustrated. I didn't have the language, the understanding, early on in our marriage to help guide him. And yeah, and he, any suggestion, he would just like, oh, I'm not doing it right. And his little boy would come up and disconnect. And so I think what you're saying is so important to understand. And it's so imperative in the realm of learning and growing in this way to embrace the awkward, to ask questions, to get curious, and to not just do that, like to have a conversation with your partner about, hey, I want to learn about your body and your pleasure. I would love you to learn about mine. I want to grow. And, are you willing to explore this with me? Like, check in with them before you start going, is it right there? Because they might feel frustrated by that. If you're asking them, hey, and telling them what you're desiring and get them on board. And if they're willing, yeah, okay. So we're going to just experiment here and it's going to be a little awkward and ridiculous till we figure it out. And having that play and that compassion and that curiosity can create so much connection and growth and learning. But we can't just be like, watching videos is helpful, but we have to actually learn. And so that's where self-pleasure is important, how to breathe, how to move our bodies, and uncovering these layers. I think most women are having penetrative sex too soon. They don't understand
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
their body is like in full turn on because they've been rushing it. And I don't know, it's like God's
Can I,
joke or
s-
something.
I want to speak to that real
Been
quick.
so like ready instantly, and women need that extra time. It's like this, yeah.
I want to
So
speak to that real quick. I think that's a really important piece that you just hit on that for men to understand too is that women have also lacked the education. Women have also been impacted by the brainwashing and programming of porn. Women have been hugely impacted by media and been put in their heads because they need to look a certain way and their body has to be a certain way. So they're super dissociated in a lot of ways. They've been hammering their clits with vibrators and not touching their bodies and dropping in and really being in their body. And, you know, ultimately, I experience this a lot with women that they think they want penetration really fast. Simultaneously, a lot of those experiences are women that really struggle to have orgasms. and can
Yeah.
maybe only do it with a vibrator or certain ways. And so I think that's a huge piece that you just hit on, not only for men to know for themselves, but that their partner might not even know what you're saying here about their own bodies, that there are certain things that will most likely lead to a better experience. And
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, what you're saying is super important. And I just want to add one little element around health. So, when women don't know this and men don't know this, and they're having penetrative sex too soon, a woman's body isn't ready. And that's super important because for her body to be ready means that her urethra sponge fills up with fluid, it squeezes off the urethra. So, bacteria can't get up there and she can't get a UTI, as well as the bulbs of the clitoris need to fill up so that the internal part of the vagina is ready for penetration. It actually feels good, along with her G spot being the G spot is elusive because it's only activated when she is in turn on and when that urethra sponge fills up. That's actually her G spot. So women don't know this and they're getting UTIs and yeast infections and all these things often because they're having penetrative sex too soon. And it still can feel good. It's not that it doesn't feel
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
but go to that next level of really feeling good. I didn't understand that for 40 years. I didn't understand what that even was. I was rushing it as well. I didn't get it either. He's ready. Okay. And I think often, like, what the man was doing in my, if I like go back in my memory bank, it was like kind of feeling good, the external whatever was happening, but it wasn't feeling great. So you're like, maybe penetration will feel better. Maybe that'll bring me to that layer of like, yum. And so I think women are also kind of searching in the dark for it, along with men.
And would you say that simultaneously something important about that, not only the men and what they were doing, but in connection to that was you on your own journey and your own embodiment and your own awakening your
I had no
body
idea.
that are both needed.
So needed. Yeah. Because now I know my body. I'm in activation. I'm pretty turned on, all the time in many ways. But for when I wasn't, I was relying on my partner to turn me on. I didn't really know how. And so we get kind of dependent on others instead of taking responsibility for ourselves and our energy and our body. And knowing that is a journey, like knowing ourselves, being able to connect to our turn on, our breath, our bodies is our job. It's our response individually. It's each of our
Yeah.
responsibility. It's each woman's responsibility. It's each man's responsibility. Healing our own trauma is our responsibility. If you have a lot of sexual trauma and that's really impeding your sex life, man or woman, go look at that, go deal with it. And I would say with a somatic practitioner, not just talk therapy,
Yeah.
because it's so hard to carry trauma. It gets us into freeze, disassociation. And if you're experiencing that, I have so much compassion for people. It's prevalent and that keeps us blocked as well. So taking responsibility for our healing, for our understanding, for our education, for our growth is just, it's imperative individually and then how we come together. And we can go, and I just want to give preference something for men.
Yeah.
Women are, you know, we are confusing. We change day to day, hour to hour, week to week, month to month. Like that is not a one thing fits all. So even having the knowledge of where the, pleasure anatomy, orgasmic potential is and all of this doesn't mean you can do it the same. Like there's some days, and work with this around with men and women. It's like some days our bodies are sensitive. We need slow and gentle and connected. And the next day we might be like primal, go hard, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's that attunement. And that's where it's like, and I think for men, it's the same thing. I think sometimes men want gentle
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
soft and slow. And sometimes
Yeah.
men want to be primal or silly or like, I think we are in such a narrow road
Yeah.
of this, like we have our blinders up and we're like, this is what I like, this is how I like it. But the thing is, we are multi-expansive beings and we have many flavors of who we are and how we experience life. And so does our sex. And we need to understand that so that we can meet ourselves. We can bring our emotion into it. We can bring our connection. We can bring our play and our silliness into it. We can bring our depth and our sacredness into it. And like to give it that kind of experience is like, oh, so much more exciting and interesting than just having this one flavor and this one way of always doing things. It just, the body goes dead. It doesn't want that. It's going to lose its interest and it's turn on real quick.
What was the word you said? Women are what? Confusing?
Or confusing.
Okay, I love that. And and it was a preface for something that I actually wanted to thread to earlier, and I'm glad that it came back up. Man, this ties back into the insecurity piece.
Mhm.
You've got to do whatever it takes to have your partner be able to communicate anything to you.
Yeah.
If
Yes.
you ever are giving her the signs that she can't tell you things because then you get defensive or you
Mm.
get insecure and then you retaliate or you try to tell her she's wrong or you try to make it about her, she will stop telling you those things. And that is the last thing that you want. What I'm discovering in my relationships now is the more radical honesty and communication that I can nurture, the better things get. I want to hear it all. I want to hear, oh my God, I just looked at that guy over there and I got really turned on and like aroused by it. If that's what needs to be said to me and face whatever I need to face in that process so that my partner can communicate the most radical, honest truth and me not recoil into defensiveness or protection because of this confusing, changing, always changing, it not being the same. For one, that's vitality. When everything's the same and repetitive, that's mechanic, that's more like dead. So we want the difference all the time, but we have to lead and create this in the relationship, which is partner, it's safe for you to tell me that that doesn't feel good, that you want me over to the left a little bit, that I'm a little bit too high, that that's too soft, that that's too hard. Hey, can you do it this way? We want to encourage as much feedback as we possibly can, but if every time that comes up, we're feeling not good enough, or we're worried that we're not doing it right, or all of these things, intimacy killer, sex life killer, like you just do not want that. So that came up earlier, and I just wanted to come back to it again.
So good. I'm glad that you shared that because it's really hard. I mean, I remember with in the beginning stages of my marriage, where I'd be like, oh, a little to the left, and he'd like, like, well, I did it that way yesterday, and I'd be like, okay, well, and the thing is, like, our cervixes move around by where we are in our cycle. They come up, they go down, they like move around a little bit. So, sometimes pressure feels it hurts. Like the day before, it could feel great. You could pound really hard in sex. The next day, you might be like, oof, something's not feeling quite right. And you need to slow down and need to change positions. Like our bodies are constantly shifting. They're not static. So it's really important to be able to give feedback and listen and just attune and feel and notice those both the verbal and the nonverbal. And I
Yeah.
give goals and individuals like information about how to go about that and have it be fun and not just mechanical. What number you want now? What number you want now? But like, yeah. And to have conversations, like open up. And it's what I feel, what I receive all the time in my work is like couples just petrified to have these conversations about what they do want and what they, how they're feeling, what their desires are. It's like desire is a dirty word. And I'm like, desire is the birthplace of life. Like
Mm,
desire is important,
mm.
whether it's sexual desire, desire for something to shift in your life or a business or whatever, like desire is important. And to follow our desire, of course, to be in integrity with our
Yeah.
desire, important,
Mhm.
but to know that desire is there to inform us. And so, yeah, being able to share that openly and navigate that with our partners and even with ourselves. And that takes us listening to ourselves. What's different today? What do I need that's different today? Something that's really obvious on women as far as pleasure is their breasts, right?
Yeah.
Depending on where they are in their cycle. Sometimes their breasts can take a lot. Sometimes their breasts are sensitive. And, it's the same thing. with their genitals, and even a man's body shifts too. And
Well, and that's where I'd actually like to go to finish this episode is to give them some stuff that they can take home or work on is like I believe that men's bodies are more like this than than we often think they are or that is often talked about. And I think one of the problems with why sex is so repetitive within relationship is that self masturbation, I'll call it masturbation, is so repetitive in most people's lives, especially for men. I'm pretty sure a lot of men they figure out the way they like to masturbate when they're like in their teens and then they just do that forever. Just the
Mhm.
same position, same
Because the goal, it's the goal. It's
yeah.
the goal is climax. The goal is climax. I
And
think we need to take away the goal as climax and we need to be in presence and connection and feeling all the little moments and expand pleasure, not just orgasm. And the thing is, when you do that, you're going to have way better orgasms, anyways, and a lot more of them.
and this is a beautiful thread because this is the encouragement I would love to give around self-pleasure for men is just as Ashley was talking about earlier, is to touch different parts of your body, not just your genitals. So next time you go into your masturbation practice and you want to turn it more into self-pleasure, don't just go into touching your genitals and that's the only part of your body that you touch for the entire time. Like try touching other parts of your body to evoke pleasure. And it may not feel I was on this path. At first, it didn't feel pleasurable. I was like, this doesn't feel pleasurable. It's like I'm just touching a board or something, you know? But over time, I swear that it will awaken. It will happen. So go into creating more of a self-pleasure practice that doesn't have primarily to do with your genitals or climaxing because it will have a ripple effect. It will have a ripple effect. It will have change will happen. You're hearing this message now. You will find other messages that go with what comes next, but start the journey there. And I'd love to hear your encouragement for the men and their moving from masturbation to more of a self-pleasure.
Yeah, so I think that we are desensitized. I think men and women. I'd say I would say a lot with men too. Just we're desensitized because they're going straight for their genitals. And but yet most men like, in intimacy, they like the rest of their bodies to be touched as well, to be kissed, to be sucked, to be, bit, whatever. There's like lots of, and so can you connect to your body in that way? And I do too, guide men in this way to like slow down, feel what the rest of your body wants. Listen to it, just like women. It's like listen to the intelligence of your body. Your body wants more connection. And again, men often rely on their partners to give them the tenderness, the sensitivity, the, eroticism, whatever they rely. I think we both rely on each other. And I'm like, we need to be able to give this to ourselves and to slow down, to feel, to connect, to touch, whether it's sensually, erotically, kinky, like whatever your flavor is, and whatever day, like you can activate and be in that essence with yourself. And when you do, you can um, elicit your senses. You can really open up the senses. And to be sensual beings, we need to connect with our senses, our taste, our smell, what we see, what we touch, how we feel. And when we touch our bodies, we're going to let those nerves wake up because they kind of just go dormant when they're not being activated. So what you're saying, oh, I just felt like I was touching a board, it wasn't even there. Yeah, completely, and then, even doing like the soft finger touch on our hands when I do that with my clients, men and women, they're like, wow, there's a lot there. And I'm like, yeah, you know, our bodies can experience a lot of pleasure in different areas, but we need to be able to connect, slow down, and be able to awaken the nerves so that we can experience all that pleasure and awaken what's possible.
I love when you just shared that. It was helpful for me because I was thinking about all the things that I like, the different touch that I like from a woman. And I laughed almost out loud because I love when I get like fingernails. I love fingernails, just different parts of my body, back especially, arms. And I was laughing because I was thinking to myself, I never do that. I never
Yeah.
like do
Why not?
fingernails on my body anywhere. And I just laughed in the realization of that's really funny that I've never thought to try that for myself, that it's only something that I want with a woman. And so, hey, I found liberation myself.
Look at that, right? I mean, even for myself, it's like I sometimes I like my hair pulled and I'll like do a little bit of that even during the day because it just feels like good. It's like, why do we rely on everybody else to do the things for us? I mean, we can give ourselves a lot of nourishment and a lot of pleasure, and we can also expand. And the more that we do that to ourselves and we know how we like it, the more we can guide our partners to like, oh yeah, a little more this way down here. And then they learn. So we all are growing and learning. And I get to hear from my partner, oh, he likes this, you like that. Okay, great. We want that, right? A lot of partners go, what do you like? I think the big hurdle is I would say a lot of women don't know what they like, don't know what they really want. And
Mm.
so this work is important.
I'd love to, to finish around that statement you just said there is it really is a deep discovery of what do I like. That's been a huge one for me lately, is it's ever evolving. It's ever evolving and what is this version of me like? Not what do I like as this rigid thing that stays the same forever, but it's what is this version of me like? And in that question, it becomes a discovery that is maybe there are a lot of the same things, but I may find new things that I didn't know about through the question. And then I can bring that into my partnership. But if I start with myself and that curiosity and that discovery, that opens me up to do it with my partner, to not be so afraid of not doing it right, but to just be like, all right, we're discovering together. What are you discovering that you like today? What are you discovering that you like in this chapter of your life? Oh, wow, cool. I'm discovering I like this in my chapter of life. Maybe we'll find other things together that we're not aware of that we enjoy in this chapter of our life. I think that's a beautiful place to be.
Absolutely. I love that you said that the chapter of our lives because we are ever changing and evolving, and we need to understand that about our intimacy and our sexuality. It's really important.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ashley. Please share any offerings you want the listeners to know about. And of course, I'll share the information to stay in contact with you in the show notes. But just share with the ways that men can work with you, or even I think I have some women listeners too. So
Yeah. Okay, well, I have a men's sexual mastery. It's a self-paced course. It goes into deep into women's pleasure and understanding women and their pleasure, as well as a lot of sexual issues that men face, and how to become a masterful lover is really important and it's deep. So that's a great program. It's super inexpensive too right now. I will be raising that rate soon. I also do a women's program that starts August 6th. It's a 6 month journey into our pleasure, power, and passion. So for women who are wanting, or men who have women who are wanting to explore the side of themselves, it's an incredible program with a week-long in-person retreat.
hmm.
And couples, and I do couples immersions and intimacy upgrades that are powerful. Just a few sessions can really shift a lot for couples. So it's something that I'm deeply is important in my life. It's meaningful, and I'd be happy to serve anybody who's wanting more support in this area of their lives.
Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. I always enjoy meeting more people that I get to walk alongside and learn from and share ideas with. So I look forward to any of the experiences that we get to share together in the future, and I appreciate this time together today.
Thank you, Ian, for having me, and thank you for the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah, of
Wonderful.
course. And thank you everybody for listening. Many more episodes to come. The information's in the show notes, and I hope that this is just another episode to help you normalize conversations around sexuality, to free yourself from performance anxiety or shame or hiding any of these things. Liberate yourself, experience more pleasure, more vitality. I'll see you in the next episodes.
Thank you, everyone.